Yes.
I love their burgers.
Their burgers are nice. Yeah.
She's got a remote in, Jeff.
What's that?
Karen, she's got a remote in.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock if everybody's ready to start. Well, welcome everybody this evening. Thank you for coming out on this chilly evening, but at least there's no snow. So I'm only worried that we're going to get hammered in February. I think we've been lucky. So if you could stand for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since this is a new school, or a new year for us, I'd like to change things up a little bit, and I would just like to would like to say a little prayer for our district and our students and our staff for this current year. If you would allow me to do that. Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us the ability to be here tonight. Help us to make wise decisions. Please protect our students, staff, everyone involved in our district this year as we continue to conduct business here in the Valley and in both buildings. And we ask you to help us make the correct decisions. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, Tammy, could you do the roll call?
Patty Anderson. Here. Carrie Armabus.
Here.
Megan Rare. Here. Brady Fike.
Here.
Diane Page.
Here.
Jeff Powell.
Here.
Janine Stump.
Here.
Eric Sunlick.
Here.
Kelly Fuller.
Here. Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion or anything that you would like to see changed as far as the official minutes from the November and December meetings? If not, I need to have a motion to approve those, to waive the reading and approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading and approve the minutes for November and December.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to public participation this evening, and we have several people tonight that are going to present. We'll start in the order we're on here. So we have the senior class officers that are going to discuss the senior class trip proposal. And David and I are going to move out of the way so we don't block the screen.
Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm Chloe, and we are the 2023 class officers. After surveying our class, 26 out of 32 students are planning on attending the senior trip to Bridgeport, Tennessee. Due to increased costs and small class size, each student will be paying $750 to attend the trip. We are planning on leaving Thursday, May 4th. We will depart from AC Valley at 12 a.m. We will arrive at Bridgeport at around 9:30 a.m. and spend the day at Dollar.
Day 2, Friday, May 5th, we plan on attending Alcatraz East Crime Museum in the morning and Keys in the afternoon and going to dinner show at night.
Day 3, Saturday, May 6th. We will attend the Ripley's Aquarium and then head back home to AC Valley.
Thanks for your time and consideration. Please contact Mrs. Rothman if you have any questions.
All right, so do we have any questions on anything that's going on with that?
What was the second thing they were gonna go do after?
It looked like, I saw Anakista there, which is it's like an outdoor park that's up in the mountains. Wasn't that what was on the second day?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, you ride up and there's a lot of stuff up on top on the mountain.
like a train, okay.
Okay. So do we have any other questions? Do we have anybody here to address?
No, I thought the kids were gonna show up, but apparently they just sent that
Okay,
video.
all right. So we're looking to approve that tonight?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I'll make a motion or if it comes later.
Yeah, yeah, it comes later.
Never mind.
It's on our agenda.
I'm gonna write halfway here.
All right, so if we don't have any other discussion, then we're going to move on to our second presentation, which we have Dr. Jordan, Mrs. Loeb, Mrs. Raybuck, Mrs. Patton, and Ms. Wakefield, who are going to talk to us about the career day and the career classes portfolio that you guys are arranging for in the spring, and we thank you for that. Is it okay for us to sit? Do you have slides?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move again.
Good evening and thank you. We understand that the agenda is quite long tonight, so it won't take much of your time. But besides the college fair that is coming this spring, since we had a number of new board members over the last couple of years, we thought it wise to give a good overview of what the high school does as far as career college readiness along with that. So just as an overview, and then I'll pass it on to these ladies. The school really has to follow the guidelines set in place by Act 339. What that is, that's a college and career readiness guideline that dictates what schools need to do from grades 3 all the way through graduation. It focuses specifically on grades 3, 5, 8, and 11, where it sets benchmarks for the levels of evidence that need to be provided by students. Included in our overview, I'd like to bring up the graduation project, which goes hand in hand with that Act 339. And it provides opportunities for students to gain experiences both in career, college readiness, and of course, community service. At the high school, we offer the careers course, which Mrs. Raybuck is going to speak about specifically. We offer seniors a cooperative work experience, and then Mrs. Loeb and Mrs. Wakefield will discuss the college and career fair scheduled for the spring. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Raybuck this time.
Hello, I'm Julie Raybuck, and I'm one of the business teachers here at AC, the co-op coordinator, and also the cyber services coordinator for the entire district. And I, along with these four, we comprise what we were calling the Career Fair Committee. But I also, when I thought back about giving us that title, I thought how often, when Career Fair wasn't even the worst, we worked together continuously career-wise with questions and direction for each other regularly throughout the entire year. So I'm going to, so the careers class Mr. Jordan just spoke about, that's part of that Act 339 that started a few years back where they said, okay, all juniors need to have career education. And we completely agree with that. We've been talking about that for years because students were getting a little bit of instruction in English, a little bit in business math, but nobody's giving them that as they get near the end of their high school career. Nobody's giving them that instruction of, how to be a good employee when they get out into the workforce. So because we've had the co-op program already, and I've been doing that for over 20 years now, we were so well prepared for this. Other school districts were struggling trying to develop a careers course. We were ready. So we just picked and chose from the co-op curriculum, put it together, and we were off and running. So we were really had a big advantage with that. The kids have it every day. The instruction is 42 minutes, almost every other day. I'd like to have it every day. Mrs. Logan and Mr. Jordan have tried to do the schedule where we can do that. We just haven't been able to do that yet, but I would like each year to have it 5 days a week instead of just every other day. Through one of the industry-based credential requirements from PPE, and which is a new requirement for this year, is they have to have, there's a list, I guess, from Mrs. Logan, explaining it to me. We have our kids earn an OSHA safe worker certification, and they can specialize, they can do the general industry one, or they can specialize in culinary, cosmetology, manufacturing, and earn that, that federal designation. And then they get a card when they're done. I have a few kids who've already finished it up, and then the others are about halfway through the program. The 4 main units that the state said you have to focus on: career acquisition, so we do resumes, cover letters, employment, interviewing, applications; career retention, just how to be a good employee; entrepreneurship, and then career orientation and planning. They want us to focus heavily on A, B, and D. Entrepreneurship is an important part, but it is a smaller part at this point. But we do talk about Levi Orton. We talk about Zach Mall and other students who have had created a career out of their business that they started in high school. We also brought in the Small Business Development Center director, and she spoke to the kids about how they can make that a career, or they may simply just make it as a side hustle throughout life to earn some extra money. The last thing I just want to stress here is we focus heavily on the trades. We've been in over the years, where we pushed, I think society pushed the kids, go to college, you gotta go to school, you gotta go to school. We know that's not the best thing, especially now. And if you're familiar with the 147, you'll get that right away. If you've never heard of that, basically what you're saying is for every one job, which we use a doctor as an example, there are 4 people underneath that person that support that person. So that's the nurses, the x-ray techs, the physician's assistant. So we've been pushing for the doctor, and we've been pushing over the years for the nurse and the 4-year programs. But then you have 7 people down on the bottom, and that would be in the doctor situation: the ambulance drivers, the admission clerk, the admission to the hospital, and we medical techs. We haven't really pushed to fill those types of positions. So when you see that 147, and you're thinking, well, gee, 7 people we're not pushing for, we're pushing for the upper ones. That's where we're focusing very, very heavily with the kids, because that's very much where the jobs are at this point. And then lastly, Mr. Jordan gave me what did you tell me, 3 minutes? Anybody knows me, 3 minutes is not enough time. So I'm gonna talk real fast. I'm also, I'm certified in co-op. We're actually one of the, I think, the only district other than the Career Center that has for the kids, the only individual district that has co-op available for our seniors. We offer it to the kids during their senior year. They sign up for it just like they would a regular class. We do have some eligibility requirements. The main one just simply being credits. They really can't need more than 4 credits in order to come to school a half day and then be able to have that time available to work. So it's a paid position. My kids this year are, typically they're making minimum wage. This year I've had kids at $18 an hour, some really good paying jobs. And the daily instructions, so taking those 4 units out, we still go back and we review, the career orientation planning. We review, we update their documents that they prepared as juniors, their resumes, their cover letters and so forth. But then we go much more in depth with consumer skills, car buying, renting an apartment, budgeting, legal awareness, what laws protect them, employment documents, how do you replace that driver's license, the passport, whatever you need to take along with you when you get a job, communication skills for human relations and so forth. And then lastly, the only thing I want to say is what we try very hard to do, what I try to do is, in the goal of the program, match the students with what their career choice is in a position. Sometimes I can do it, more often than not, honestly, I can't, because we're in a very rural position, a lot of them want to be in the medical field, and it's very difficult. So what I do is I look at the skill set that's required at that job, and then try to find a position that has the same skill set. And then sometimes we also just look at the Mrs. Logan and I would talk about, maybe somebody's a little bit unrealistic in what they're thinking they're going to do. So we look at a skill set that's similar to what they think they want to do, but in a place where there could be a career, a long-term career. And I do have some very, great success stories at Hunter Truck Sales. Kids that have gone in there as a high school student, and our supervisors of their departments, a head machinist at Swartfetter Welding, who started in high school pushing a broom. I remember Ken handing him a broom when we walked in there. So it's a really nice success, long-term careers for these people. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Lowe, and she will.
Good evening, I'm Minnie Love, the high school counselor, and I would like to speak to you tonight about our career fair that we have planned for March. But first of all, I wanted to highlight a few of the activities and experiences that our students have had this year and in the spring of last year. So the first thing, a few years ago, the other counselors in Clarion County and I began working together collaboratively to plan a post-secondary options fair that we have been holding at Penwest Clarion. So this year at our fair, we had over 60 vendors. There were representatives from for employment, apprentice programs, colleges, universities, trade schools, and the military. So our students that participated in that trip in November were our entire junior class, as well as any senior who didn't have a definite career plan. They were given the opportunity to attend that trip as well. Some of our other trips and presentations, we have visited a couple of different employers. So we had a trip to Miller Fabrication Solutions in Brookville, and our students were able to tour both of their facilities. So you'll see the photo there of them at Miller Fabrications. And then Mr. Fight was also instrumental in helping us set up a trip to the Western PA Operators Union, which is located near Greensburg. We had a speaker come from Tank Carrier Services, and they came last spring, and they were actually also trying to recruit students for employment. So following the presentation, we had a couple of different trips that Mrs. Raybuck took students over in the van to actually experience that work environment. And then we also had representatives from Chronospan who visited our students in the co-op class, and then also any other student who was interested was able to participate, but they were also looking for employees. That was their goal of their presentation. The next slide is just pictures of the trip to the Western PA Operators Union. So when they used to come a few years ago, when they would come to our school, they had a virtual experience that our students did on the computer. So when they went on the trip this year, they were actually able to operate the machinery. That's one of our students that you see there in the excavator. And they came back. I didn't go on that trip. And they came back and they were so excited that they got to do that. And you'll see on the picture on the right, they had to walk through all of that mud. So in my office, there was a trail of mud everywhere as it departed their shoes. And I was pretty bummed that I didn't accompany them, but they reminded me that I would have never walked through that mud. And they're probably correct about that. So as far as trips to post-secondary institutions, in the spring of last year, we toured both Slippery Rock and Edinburgh, as well as Newcastle School of Trades. This fall, we took a trip to Pittsburgh Technical College, and then in the spring, we have a trip already scheduled for Triangle Tech. And then I've had some requests from students to tour some of the private colleges that are close to us. So Westminster, Geneva Teal, Grove City. So I try to mix them up. So last year we did the state schools. This year we're going to do some private schools. And so that would allow students to have those experiences in 2 consecutive years. So that's our plan for the spring. And then moving on to our college and career fair. So our date for that is March 24th. And The actual fair will take place from 9 until 11:30 a.m. So with that being said, students are going to have the opportunity to rotate through 5 different areas. So 4 of those will be speakers in classrooms, and the 5th then would be in the gymnasium with a variety of different employers, trade schools, colleges and universities who will be there, the military. That will take place in the gym. So we started the process a few weeks ago. We sent out a Google survey to our staff because our goal is always, we used this model a few years ago, the last time we had a fair here, but our goal is to have as many AC Valley graduates involved as possible. So we reached out to staff and said, could you give us some suggestions about who may be willing to participate? So we're in the process of still contacting people to do that, but once we have all of our presenters established, then we will send out a survey to our students, and they will get to choose which presentations they would like to attend as far as the speakers, and then we will develop a schedule for every student to be able to go through that rotation. So then following the fair, we will be providing lunch to our speakers, and the meal will be prepared by the students in our family and consumer science programs. And also, our co-op students are going to be instrumental in the planning of the day and setting up schedules. So far, we have about 30 participants already confirmed for the fair, so we're excited about that. Okay, I'm going to turn things over to our career counselor from the United Way, Mrs. Deanna Wakefield.
I just wanted to ask, I don't know what everybody does, but I knew that you guys had said that you wouldn't mind participating. I did email some of you, but I don't have everybody's information. So I do have some cards. If you could email me, or if I can get your information another way, I'll sending stuff out. And just let me know that what maybe you would want to do. You could be a speaker or have a table, depending on what you do, because I don't know. But I appreciate any feedback as well. So I'll leave some of my cards, and if you have any suggestions, I welcome those too.
Do any of the board members have questions?
What grade levels are gonna do the fair? 11 to 12?
7 to 12.
So everybody.
If you do think of questions afterwards, you can always email myself or any of these ladies. One thing about career college readiness is that it entails the entire high school. Everything that we do is umbrella. And so almost on a daily basis, I'm connecting with one of these ladies to problem solve and to try to figure things out so that we are offering the best opportunity and experiences for our students. Thank you very much. If there are no questions, we are.
And I think that Act 339 goes clear down to 3rd grade.
Yes.
So it starts when they're in elementary school. There's so many things they have to have.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think at this point, we are ready for Mr. Turnley, our auditor. He's also going to be presenting virtually.
Can everybody hear me this evening?
Hi, Mark, yes, we can.
Okay, great. I heard a little static in the presentation, so I was a little fearful I might want to come in good.
No, you sound
Thanks, board members, for having me here this evening. I just wanted to briefly go over the results of the 21-22 fiscal year audit of the school district. Some information you hopefully have is a copy of the detailed audit report itself, the thick audit report, but more importantly, for the sake of this evening's meeting, a short synopsis, 5-page synopsis that I prepare for the board each year, just to touch on the highlights of the audit and present some comparative information from prior years for those board members who may be new to the district, and just as a refresher for those that have been on the board for a period of years. Just a couple of comments first before I turn to the synopsis. dated for this evening, just about the thicker audit report, a couple of sections in there. First of all, the independent auditor's opinion, as I tell the board each year, probably from our perspective, the most important pages in the report, and that's where we express our opinion after our audit procedures on the district's financial statements. And what we have issued this year, as we have in the past, is what is known as an unmodified opinion. And basically what an unmodified opinion means is that the information contained in the body of the audit report is presented in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession. And there are no departures from those rules. So in layman's terms, that's a good thing. That's the type of opinion you want to have when you send your audit report out to any third party, in particular, Department of Education, on an annual basis. So I just wanted the board to know that. Subsequent to that, those pages on Roman numerals 1 through 3 in the thick audit report, there's another section, again, I encourage my board members to read, and that's the management discussion and analysis section of the report. And that's on Roman numeral pages 4 through 11 when you get a chance. But the purpose of that section of the report is to give the reader, not only the board members, but any third party that requests a copy of your audit report, to give them hopefully a quick read of how the district did for the year under audit, which is the 21-22 year, but also provide some comparative information, 2021 versus 21-22, and also some explanations for why the increases or decreases in any particular area throughout the audit report. So again, I think that's a good read, well-written, and important section, not only for the board, as I always say, but for third-party readers taking a look at the audit report. So I turn your attention to that as well. At this point, I'm going to jump back to that synopsis I had promised you dated for this evening and just go over the numbers with some comparative history, if I may. On the first page of that synopsis, you can see at the bottom, I have a 5-year history of the district's fund balance. And this is their overall fund balance because those of you that have been on the board for a while, you may recall your fund balance is broken down into various pots of money, some of which are assigned for particular purposes, some of which is unassigned and used for general operations. And therefore, I've broken this synopsis down in to show you not only the total, but the components of that total. So the importance of this page of the overall total is I wanted the board to see, as you probably are fully aware, of the history of this fund balance over the last 5 years. And if you look at the 18-19 year, I give you some asterisks just to refresh your memory for those who've been on the board for a while. You had a fairly significant decrease in your overall general fund balance that year. And it was the year that you did the district's energy savings project. And that was a planned expenditure out of that fund. So there was nothing surprising there. But if you look at the last 3 years, you can see a trend, as you well know, of decline in fund balance. You can see starting in the 1920 year, 727,000, and then 870,000, 839,000. And on the last page of this synopsis, and you can read it at your leisure, I kind of talk more about this decline in fund balance over these 3 years and this trend. And again, I'm probably talking about what you already know, but I think it's very important to rehash this one more time. If you look at those last 3 years, you can see a decrease of about, on average, of about a little over 800,000, about 812,000 each year. So if you were to do the math, if you look at your overall fund balance and you have 2.8 million, you can kind of calculate how many fiscal years at this particular average rate of loss it's going to take for you to be in a position where you're not as liquid, not as able to make decisions as you would want to because of the financial position. So we're talking anywhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 years if this trend were to continue. And there's a number of factors, I'm sure, that the superintendent has brought to the board's attention with regard to why there has been these declines. And if you look at the year that you're in now, even though I told you that it's averaging about a little over $800,000 average drop, you have budgeted for the year that you're in over $500,000 of a loss in fund balance. So, at this particular point, because we haven't done the audit, we don't know if it's going to be more toward what you budgeted, which is in the neighborhood of about 560,000, or if it's going to be more along the average, 812,000. What's interesting to note that I point out in that final paragraph, and that the board is aware of, as you know, last fiscal year and this year, you've been supported to a degree by COVID-related funding. You got your COVID ESERS 1 allocation, your COVID 2 ESERS allocation, and this year more in the American Rescue Plan money. And that's been a significant amount of money that the district has been able to use for particular purposes related to COVID and other to assist the district in other much needed areas. So, when we talk about this year, the amount of money that you spent in the 21-22 year, this COVID money, the ESERS and the ARP, as I like to call them, American Rescue Plan money, that was a little over almost $1.2 million of additional resources that, as you know, unfortunately will probably not be part of your budget in future years. I don't know to the extent that it affects your 22-23, but I know that, with what they're talking about, 23, 24, you're not going to see those funds again. So if you look at this year and say, boy, we had excess expenditures on average of about 812,000, where would we have been had we not had that COVID and ARP money for the 21-22? How much more would have that hurt us? And you have to really look at this average that I'm talking to you about in context with the loss of that money going forward. Now, to what degree, I don't know. Maybe the government will come through with additional monies, still related to COVID, still related to the American Rescue Plan. But the assumption is that this will not go on forever. So without those funds, you can see there might have been more damage to the district's fund balance in the 21-22 year than just that 812,000. So again, keep that in mind. This average that I'm talking about is a real drop in fund balance and could have been more without this ESER and ARP funding. And I don't mean to sound doom and gloom this evening, but as you can see this trend, you can see it's important that you address these issues. And I know you've been looking at this, but just as a reminder, when you turn to the top of page 2 of this synopsis, in the beginning of my presentation, I told you about the fund balance being broken down in various pots. And there's a portion that is unassigned, and that's the table at the top of the second page. And then there's a portion that is assigned for particular purposes. And that breakdown of those assigned monies is at the very bottom of this page. The reason I give you that table at the top is because PDE looks at that unassigned fund balance for important reasons. Most importantly, your ability, if you ever needed to or felt you needed to go beyond, raise your millage beyond the annual index increase that PDE gives you on an annual basis. If you ever had to do that, you have to pass a budget whereby your unassigned fund balance, which is the numbers in this table on the top of page 2, is at or below a certain percentage of your current year budget. And that magic percentage for Allegheny Clearing is 9.5%. So the district makes its unassigned fund balance, as you can see at the end of the 21-22, $1,552,000. That's exactly 9.5% of your budget. So you're in compliance with PDE standards with regard to your unassigned fund balance. But again, with those possible declines in fund balance, I don't know how that's going to affect that unassigned amount going forward. The assigned amount, which is the difference between the overall that we talked about on page 1 and this assigned for the most part, is broken down at the bottom of page 2, where the board has earmarked these funds for specific reasons. You can see PSERS rate increase, healthcare increases, and mostly budgetary shortfall, which is again related to, the potential for expenditure to exceed revenues going forward. So again, just some information to share with the board with regard to the components of fund balance, how your overall was, and how much your unassigned is, and that it's in compliance with PDE at this particular point in time. When you move on to page 3, give the board, just staying with the general fund again, a 5-year history of the general fund revenues in the general fund expenditures. And you can see the various increases and decreases each year. And I think it's notable for this year in both tables, both the revenues and the expenditures, that there was an increase, very close increase in revenues as compared to the increase in expenditures. And a good deal of that has to do with that additional ESSERS funding and ARP money that I spoke about previously. Reflects that in these numbers. That 1.2 million of those dollars is reflected in the increase both on the revenue side and the expenditure side. So again, just something I wanted to bring to your attention with regard to the general fund again. Moving on to page 4 of this synopsis, as I always do, how did we do as a board comparing our actual for the general fund versus our budget? And the first bullet point on page 4 talks about revenues. General fund actual revenues exceeded budgeted revenues by $747,000 almost. And the bulk of this, I point out, were in 2 areas. Local source revenues, mainly your taxes, things of that nature, that exceeded budget by about $327,000. And again, your federal subsidies, again, staying with the ESSERS and the ARP money, some of which was budgeted, some of which was not. Your actual revenues were over by about $411,000. So in total, actual revenues exceeded budget by $746,000. The second bullet point, expenditures, actual expenditures, very close to budget, slightly exceeded budget by about $187,000. Budget versus actual numbers in general, in summary form, can be found on page 7 in the audit report, but also for the sake of the board, in our audit report, we include back on pages 47 through 51, a detailed breakdown of each of your revenues and each of your expenditures and give you a budget versus actual result there so that you can see, where did we do well, where did we not do so well at a more detailed level. So again, that can be located on pages 47 through 48. Now, when you look at the 21-22, the last bullet point, you actually budgeted, which is why it's hard for me to predict 22-23 at this point. You actually budgeted to expend almost 1.4 million more than you were going to take in. So, the good news is that your expenditures were over revenues by only $840,000 as compared to what you thought it may be at 1.4. So, it'll remain to be seen what happens. As we talked about, you had budgeted for excess expenditures in the current year that you're in, 22-23, of about $563,000. So, at this particular point, we don't know how that's going to play out. But you can see how the 21-22 year played out when you budgeted to lose, so to speak, 1.4 million and came in at only 840,000. On the bottom of page 4, I present what I call the results of your consolidated financial statements. Again, those of you that have been on the board for a while, you recall each year that I tell you about. In your audit report, there's basically 2 sets of financial statements. One is the short-term view, which we have been talking about, how the general fund did and how they did budget versus actual. And there's also a long-term view where you have to add in all the fixed assets of the district and all the district's long-term liabilities. And it's that information, it's those reports that I kind of encapsulate at the bottom of this table on page 4. When you look at that first line, you see net position, you see a deficit position of 8.7 million. And again, as I tell the board, the main reason for that, and with every district, is that as a school district, you're required to show as a liability on your books your proportionate share of the district's pension liability, PESers, with PESers, as compared to the statewide. And your particular net pension liability at June 30th, 2022 was $17,326,000. So you can see, I was just talking about almost having a $3 million fund balance under the short-term view, but when you take off 17 million as a liability due to the state, you can see how that throws you in a negative position when we look at the consolidated view of the district. Now, again, as I always tell the board, it's not as if you have to cut a check to PDE tomorrow to Peasers for 17 million. It's more of a required accounting standard that requires you to put that liability on these consolidated statements, if you will, just to show what your net position would look like if all of those liabilities came due today, how your final number would play out. Also included in this table, we haven't talked about, but just as importantly, is an important fund of the district, is your food service operations. And your food service operations, you see a net position number, you see negative, and I won't dwell on that too much because just like the consolidated numbers above, the food service fund has to absorb a little bit of that Peasers pension liability. So that's what drives it into a negative position. But more importantly are the lines below that where you see change in net position. And this year you see a profit of 151,000 compared to a loss of 21,000 last year. And there's a couple reasons for that. And you don't necessarily have to turn to this page, but I'll just tell you about this page. In the actual FIC audit report on page 9, Exhibit I, is a more detailed profit and loss statement for the year that shows how you got to that $151,000 excess revenue or profit, if you will, for the 21-22. One of the biggest reasons for that is transfers from the general fund. Your general fund subsidized the cafeteria fund to the tune of $100,000 this year. So of that $151,000, $100,000 of that was a subsidy from the general fund. Now that left you, if you were to just exclude that money coming in from the general fund, you would see that your, again, profit, as I'm calling it, is approximately $50,000. But if you were to dig into that profit, approximately half of that $50,000 profit is a $25,000 adjustment to the good of the cafeteria fund for the change in that Peasers pension liability. In other words, it was an accounting, a paper entry that had to be recorded in the cafeteria fund books. So I know I'm hitting you with a lot of technical information, and I apologize for that. But again, I'm gonna walk you backwards to tell you what I think was the true liquid profit, if you will, of the cafeteria fund. We start with an overall profit of 151,000. We back out the 100,000 of subsidy that came in from the general fund to take you back to, let's say, 50,000. And then if you were to take off that paper entry that I make every year to adjust to the Peasers liability, at least the cafeteria funds portion, you're really down to a profit, if you will, before any other intervention of about $25,000 in the cafeteria fund. So that's the way, I would encourage you to look at it in terms of assessing how did we do on our own without any assistance and without any required entries, paper entries, to adjust the numbers. You look at the 3 lines on that table on the bottom of page 4, you can see the changes in the main line items in the food service fund. You can see food service operating revenues very consistent with last year. Food operating expenses, an increase of about 45,000. And on the last line on the bottom of page 4, as a remote school district, a significant increase in federal and state subsidies for the year. And that really had a lot to do also with the increase in the bottom line for the cafeteria fund for the 21-22 year. And then page 5, just moving to page 5 is what I've already talked to you about. I just bullet pointed again just to highlight it, how much your Peasers liability is and some other liabilities. And then the final comment is the fund balance decline. And, I wrote that comment this year, not that you are not fully aware of it, but just to hone in on the importance of that issue and the importance of planning as best you can for how to curtail that going forward into the future. And then my last comment, again, turning back to the thicker audit report, is In addition to the numbers that we do on an annual basis, the financial part of the audit, we also do a compliance audit because you receive and expend over $750,000 in federal funds annually. In particular, this year, we chose those funds that I mentioned to you earlier in my presentation, the ESER 2 money and the ARP money. And we look for compliance with those criteria for those particular programs. And as can be seen in the back of the audit report, we're telling PDE that there were no material issues of non-compliance that we found in relation to our audit of that particular program. And again, that's a good thing. That's what you want PDE to see when they open up your audit report and look not only at the financial section that we've been talking about, but also the compliance section that is in the back of the audit report. So hopefully, folks, I haven't droned on too long. I wanted to make sure I touched the important points in summary fashion, give you a little bit of history from the past, talk about the importance of the fund balance again, and tell you how you did overall with your independent auditor's opinion and how you did from a compliance perspective as well. So if there are any questions at this point, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can. If I can't, as always, as I tell the board, I'll be more than happy to come back to a future meeting. Or you can, through management, contact me directly in my office, and I can provide hopefully any answers to questions that you may have. So thank you again, and if there are questions, please, anyone who has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the school board members? I don't think we have anything at this time, Mark.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good meeting. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Bye-bye.
It was encouraging to hear that our cafeteria wasn't in the hole. Like the previous years where we had over $100,000 in the hole, so that's encouraging. All right, we are gonna move on. Are there any presentations? I don't see anything, and I don't see anybody, so it looks like we're in the clear there. See anybody else? Any board concerns this evening?
Kelly,
Yes, sir.
I've had a couple parents and a couple coaches with the new Wi-Fi. There's some concern with kids getting a hold of parents after school with programs. Phones aren't working at all, and I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I didn't know if that's something we could discuss in the technology committee to see.
Yeah, now, we're not planning another meeting till spring,
Okay.
but it might be something that we need to address. I don't know. Aaron, could we ask you a quick question? Having to do with the guest network, there's no way we can filter that guest network?
We can't filter it, but our primary form of filtering is purely on the Chromebooks, which is an app. So we don't really, the firewall filtering is not nearly as accurate. We just feel that it's, we have to comply with CEPA in order to get a lot of funding. So through the kids having access to that Wi-Fi, that we don't have a great hold on the filtering. There's a blanket filter that prevents, the basic stuff, but we can't, prevent them from getting to everything. We monitor the security filter very, very, thoroughly all the time to make sure. We've had some recent incidents with the kids being on that Wi-Fi network that have resulted in, disciplinary issues. So the kids were never really meant to ever have that guest Wi-Fi network. We've explored putting boosters in, we've explored a couple different things. With the new phone system that you'll be voting on tonight, we are considering putting in a couple courtesy phones near where the kids would wait at the end of practice where they can call home if they would desire to do something like that.
So was it a Wi-Fi boost that helped everybody with the signal to be able to call out? Now they can't. Is that
I think that is probably their issue. You can call out through Wi-Fi on modern smartphones. You can connect to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing is.
But you can't really filter that when it's on cell phone, can you?
Right, because of all of our filtering is device-based.
Right.
Mostly, so we
So-
we can't push filters to personal phones. But we're open to suggestions, but our hands are kind of tied at that point, since that network wasn't really for that to begin with.
So it sounds like the courtesy phones would be a good way to start, I would think.
Yeah,
At least the students would have,
they just
you
have.
know, we don't have the old pay phones we had in our day, but
That's what we discussed it, yeah. Can't they just line up down at the gym at the payphone anymore?
but the courtesy phones would allow them to call out. then if they
Sometimes
didn't
it was
hear.
just if you called twice and nobody was there, then dad knew to come.
Yeah. For the dime or the nickel.
Right.
I think we're okay.
Tried boosters before, like cell phone boosters?
We have boosters, they're, depending on where they are, they're okay. Down here, ours is iffy down here. Up at the high school, they seem to perform pretty well. I'm not sure where the kids are primarily having issues at the high school. We could put something like that.
People who contacted me were mostly cheer parents and cheer coaches.
So it's mostly down here, and that's.
So they're down here.
Yeah. So it's because the signal here is already fairly weak outside. You can get a signal, but it's not great. Up at the high school, you can, but,
We think as much as we pay for cell phone coverage, that they would put some towers up.
you would think.
I know.
They've actually taken it down. There's about 8 towers missing in their area now.
So, well, then do we want to encourage them to get a couple extra phones and put them in as,
I would think
Okay.
yeah.
if you could look at that, then as part of the, so
Yep.
the students can have access to them.
Yeah.
They need to make a call to parents or.
Okay.
Just one about each gym or something?
Exits where they typically are. We'll place courtesy phones wherever we need them.
Anything then, what about, well, I don't know, will it be long distance calling since it's networking?
It'd be included in our,
Okay,
whatever's included in our CenturyLink plan would be the same
okay.
for phone calls.
That's all I had.
Okay, no other board concerns? All right, so we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. If you take a look at those items, we have a number on the consent agenda. If you take a minute and take a look and see if there's anything that you would like voted on separately, we can pull it out and do it as a separate discussion and vote. Is there anything you would like removed from the consent agenda? Okay, not seeing any. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion on any item that you would like to have? I think they're all pretty self-explanatory, but David can fill in if there's anything you have questions about. I should say Dr. McDevitt. Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, we'll flip over to finance and purchase. I'm sure I'm not skipping anything here. And Meg, would you like to take care of that? And I should be saying Dr. Dreher as well. I apologize.
We lump A through H together, make motion to approve the text.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on those items? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Letter I, cafeteria report. Mrs. Ray.
I'll keep it short. I just want to say it's great to be back, and I did include in your packet, Wednesday is my first day back. So I did just include a couple of very, very quick things that you can read down through, and I will have a better financial report for you when I get everything wrapped up at the end of this month. If you have any questions on anything in that packet, you can just email me or catch me on another day, if you have a little more time. That's it.
Okay, letter J, consideration to approve the budget timeline for the 2023-2024 school year as attached.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussions? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Carrie, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay, we just want to make sure we were hearing you. Thank you.
Letter K, consideration to approve the following 3 state contracts for bidding purposes: PA State, EPPM, CoStars, and US Communities.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
L, consideration to approve a resolution wherein AC Valley School District will limit the tax increase to the state index of 5.5% as attached.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. I just want to clarify, anyone listening, that is not stating that we're raising the taxes 5.5%. That is just saying we will not go over that amount, which is the allowable amount the state allows us to go without putting a referendum on the ballot. So any other discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
M, consideration to approve the following service proposals and cost comparison statement from KAPP and I Company as attached. Service proposal dated 11/10/22, quote number 000511154, in the amount of $314.45 per month for 36 months. And service proposal dated 11/11/22, in the amount of $2,618.75 per month for 36 months.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I've asked Aaron to help fill in if you have any questions. We did discuss it at the tech committee. And if you need specifics, I'd like Aaron to answer that if you have any questions. It's going to be a good move, I think, for the district. It's actually going to save money and increase our phone service. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Consideration to approve purchasing the following items to be used in conjunction with item M listed above as attached: 8 IP norm speakers, 12 IP color visual alters, 2 IP paging adapter and schedulers, 8 call buttons, and 3 IP multimedia intercoms in the amount of $21,635 plus shipping to be determined. In the estimated amount of $21,635 to be paid using PCCD mental health and school safety grant funds, contingent upon the PCCD school safety and security grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? As we mentioned before, that's going to allow us for some outside speakers and just some better communication across both school buildings. Okay, any other questions, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
O, consideration to approve the joint municipal agreement for law enforcement services, 10 hours per week, $1,500 per month, between the Borough of Emmleton and the Allegheny Clearing Valley School District between January 2023 and ending June 30th of 2024, to be paid through the PCCD school safety and security grant as attached.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So I just want to double check on this. The 10 hours that they're going to be here is going to be when the kids are on campus, whether it's during school hours or like sporting events after school, right?
Yeah, that's correct. In the summertime, if we don't have kids here during the summer months, we'll be reviewing safety plans and take a look at our day-to-day operation.
Okay.
But yeah, you're absolutely correct. We'll be working with Dave Sittler. We'll be during the day, it'll be covering games. It'll be when kids are on campus.
Okay.
Will he actually be in some of the buildings at times?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll be here on campus.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved.
E, consideration to approve the Bridges Intervention Set 1 and Set 2 sales order quote from the Math Learning Center dated 11/21/2022 in the amount of $19,800 to be paid using the ARP ESSER 3 grant as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is going to be an after-school intervention program that was presented to the administration by our math coach. It's a one-time purchase that we'll be able to use throughout the years. And this didn't make it onto the workshop agenda because we were working through the ESSER program to make sure that it was an allowable expense and that we had a single source letter here on campus. So we do have money in the grant. It is recommended. Mr. Sherman's in favor of it as well, and that's why it's in front of you this evening.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thanks, Dr. Dreher. We'll move on to personnel. Jameen, would you do personnel for us tonight? No, I gave you the long one. That's because Eric said to me earlier, he needs to talk tomorrow and he's reading Shakespeare, and so he can't do anything long.
All right, let's start with letter A. Consideration to retroactively approve the letter of resignation as boys and girls varsity golf coach dated January 3rd, 2023, from Mike Weigel as attached. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
I'm gonna lump B and C. Certainly. Consideration to approve advertising for the vacated boys varsity golf coaching position and the girls varsity golf coaching position. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, D, consideration to retroactively approve the letter of resignation as weight room supervisor dated January 3rd, 2023, from Jeffrey Ginn as attached. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
B, F, and G, I'm going to lump together. E, consideration to approve advertising for the vacated weight room supervisor position. F, consideration to approve advertising for a junior high baseball coach. And G, consideration to approve advertising for a junior high softball coach. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question. What hours is the weight room open? Do we have
In the-
hours?
In the past, it's been after the students have left for the day, so anywhere from 20 hours a week to a little bit over, depending on the schedule and depending on home games as well. We generally don't run the weight room whenever we have a home varsity game. So depending on who we get in here, and again, that's a minimum wage job, just so that everybody's aware, student, what their schedule looks like, and depending on their game.
Okay. And all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
H, consideration to approve removing Mike Loeb from the ACV coaching staff roster. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Letter I, consideration to approve advertising for a temporary part-time 3-hour-per-day cafeteria position. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Can I lump J, K, and L?
Yes.
Okay. J, K, and L, to consideration to approve the request from employee 99 to utilize sick days, also employee number 28 to utilize sick days, and employee number 62 to utilize sick days concurrent with FMLA leave as needed. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Letter M, consideration to approve adding Sydney Rankin retroactively effective December 8th, 2022 as a long-term special education substitute teacher for the 5th and 6th grade learning support classroom as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
N, consideration to retroactively approve the letter of resignation as a child-specific aide from Crystal Long dated December 20th, 2022. Crystal's last working day with the district will be December 22nd, 2022, and the final date of employment will be January 3rd, 2023 as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Item O, consideration to approve the letter of resignation in the accounts payable position dated January 3rd, 2023, from Ryan Wamba as attached. Ryan's last day with the district will be January 17th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Item P, consideration to approve advertising for the vacated secretarial accounts payable position. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Q, consideration to retroactively approve the letter of resignation as intervention specialist dated December 16th, 2022 from Jamie Simpson as attached. Jamie's final day of employment will be January 13th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Item R, consideration to approve advertising for the vacated intervention specialist position. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I guess that kind of goes with that. We talked about perhaps changing that to a special education type position, so.
And we modified that job description so we can advertise this.
Okay, so when we advertise, it will be for both. Both. Okay. Everybody clear on that? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Yeah, that's why I wondered why R and S maybe should have been put. Anyway, as consideration to approve the intervention specialist / special education teacher job description as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Item T, consideration to approve the business manager job description as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
U, consideration to approve the updated business manager contract effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025 as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Do I have to do anything with B and W?
No, because we're tabling
Okay,
it.
X, consideration to approve the Slippery Rock University Uniform Clinical Training Affiliation Agreement between the Allegheny Clarion Valley School District and the Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Good job, Jimmy. You kept us on the roll there. All right, we'll move on to instructional services. Jeff, would you like to do that for us this evening?
Sure, we have the elementary report.
Sure. So currently, we are pretty much completed with our middle of year benchmark assessments. And that takes up a good portion of our time, right before Christmas break, right after Christmas break. And those are the assessments that give us some data that we can compare to our beginning of year assessments to see how students improve. We do those in math and ELA. Last week during the teachers' PLCs, Trevor Heil and myself, as I was able, met with the grade level teachers to go over their math data. And next week we will have our quarterly grade level meetings. And Aaron Barlett and Marcy Sunling will go over the ELA data with the teachers. After the first meeting I sat in with Trevor, I started thinking about the PFAS data that we get, which comes from the state and kind of shows us how students are doing in terms of growth. It's based on the PSSAs, but it's different data than we get from the PSSAs. And you can actually dig down into that and see like exactly which students are growing, which ones are not. So I went in and got that information and compared it with the data that Trevor had presented at the PLC. Just out of curiosity to kind of see if we were on the right track in terms of benchmarking our kids. And it was completely spot on. It matched up. It said that a student had grown and was predicted to be proficient on the exams this year. Those students were coming up as what we call core or green in Trevor's data. You know, students that were maybe not growing as much or who are showing as needing a little extra support to grow some more were coming up as strategic or intervention on Trevor's data as well. So that was kind of encouraging to see that our data was matching up so closely. It shows us that we're getting good data, and it emphasizes the importance of kids doing their best on those benchmark tests and the progress monitoring as we go through. And I know the teachers have been pretty diligent about if a student rushes through, because the iRate data will tell us if they rush. Marcy and Aaron and Trevor's tests are given one-on-one, so they can kind of pace the kids through it. You know, so in doing that, it's giving us the data we need to look at curriculum and instruction and see where we need to focus that in order to hopefully help the kids grow more and succeed a little better. Additionally, we added the handwriting without tears this year, and there is a packet at your table that was prepared by Kelly Schimpf. She's our certified occupational therapy assistant. And we did add more time with her this year due to our high level of needs in the occupational therapy area. And the handwriting without tears program was approved for the beginning of this year. We did implement it and have done our best to do that with fidelity. I have sat in on many classes watching them do the program, and it's fun. We have it in grades K through 3, and it's fun for me to go to all the different grade levels and hear like the kids using the same verbiage, and it's little things like helicopter up, touch the line. You know, it sounds simplistic, but we're really seeing a lot of growth in that. Kelly compiled some data for you so that you can see initially how many students were screened in each grade and how many of those students needed interventions in the first semester versus how many at the middle of the year are showing needs for intervention second semester, as well as a bar graph to show you that we are indeed improving the kids. And she broke that down for you. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. She broke that down for you so you can kind of understand what that's showing us. We do still have kids who are requiring the interventions. But I asked her to include some samples. There's no names on these, so you can't see who the kids are. But there's 2 samples per grade, one from September and one from January, so that you can kind of see like where the kids started when they came in and where they're at now. And a lot of people will ask, why handwriting? Why is that so important? Because a lot of schools don't have much of a focus on it anymore. But this summer when I did one of my PILS courses, I used it as the presentation that I had to do for the end project. And one of the things that I found was that it talked about when you're forming letters with your hand, that is sending information to your brain as far as processing things. So when you're doing that and your eyes are tracking, that sends another message. And as I was reading that research, I thought, I can remember even in college when I would be studying for tests, I would often rewrite my notes or I would read them out loud to myself. And I think that's probably that same theory that when you make that physical motion, it imprints in your brain and makes that connection. And you don't get that if you're doing it on a device. You don't have that same connection. So I do think that is a big key between engaging your brain and then the letter sounds and the word development for reading and writing later on. So hopefully that's what we'll see as we continue with this program. Not only is our handwriting improving, one of the teachers who I sat in with last week said, this program is really working. I can finally read your spelling tests again. So that's a benefit for sure, but I think that bigger than that, I'd like to see 2 or 3 years from now that our reading success has improved. In addition to that, I just wanted to highlight that Mrs. Rice has been very busy planning some things for the school as a whole. Various grades will be getting programs from Passages like BABES, the Safe, Unsafe Touch, and Internet Safety starting in February, and they run the whole way through April. And then, as you just approved, the clinical training affiliation with SRU, Mrs. Rice and myself have been working with Miranda Barone to set that up. So the students will get 10 to 15 minutes each Friday with the kids from Slippery Rock University for 10 Fridays beginning in February. So that is what we have set up with them, and hopefully that will be a good program. Every classroom in the building will have that 10 to 15 minutes. And have 2 students, I believe, in their classroom doing that. And that's all I have, unless anybody has questions.
I just have a quick question in the handwriting. Do they do any cursive with any, like the second or third graders?
Yeah, the third grade that's in there so we have the third grade, they do cursive, but there was a contingent of third graders who were below grade
Right.
level. There are COVID kids.
Yeah.
They're kind of below in everything, so she included their samples, because Ms. McCord is teaching that specific group, and they started with printing, but they are now getting ready to move to the cursive. The other third graders are doing the cursive.
Thank you.
Secondary report, Dr. Blue.
I would like to start off by just saying how awesome some of our students are when it comes to interacting with the community. As an example of that, Student Council held a pink out volleyball game earlier in the fall, raised $1,150 that was split between the Hillman Cancer Center and the Mrs. Claus Foundation. Along with that, the Powder Puff football raised $330 for the Wreaths Across America and 2 large boxes of food for the Perry Township Food Bank. Our students are constantly reaching out to our communities, and we continue to encourage them to do that. Our PBIS team at the high school is looking to schedule another reward trip for our students sometime around the end of the third quarter. The consensus of the students so far is the trampoline park in Cranberry Township. This would reward any student that has not had a single disciplinary referral throughout the entire year. Under athletics, if you haven't heard, our competitive cheer squad is headed to Hershey for state competition in the co-ed division, so we wish them lots of luck for that. They're a little over halfway through winter sports, and by the end of next week, spring sports will start to do their open gyms down here at the elementary and also at the high school when it's available. I would like to take 1 minute and discuss some of the conference requests from the high school. The first one from Jen Stover, Mrs. Hartle, and Peggy Plowman is the conference request for the Department of Education conference. This conference is a yearly conference that focuses on providing educators with sessions that talk about educational practices at work. It specifically focuses on special education and how that can interact with the regular classroom, which is exactly what we're doing with the inclusion at the high school. Dr. Catulio has the request to go to the Armstrong Arts and Culture Interest Meeting. He talked to me today and he said that he hopes to get ideas that will support more engagement with cultural opportunities, very similar to what we do with the art group here at ACV. Then the final request was from myself and Mrs. Sherman to go to a training there at the IU for MTSS. MTSS is called multi-tiered systematic support, and it's very similar to our PBIS in that it uses data to break students into groups. It looks at the largest group being the students that can benefit from the regular instruction in the classroom. Hopefully at least 80% of the kids can progress with regular instruction. The second group that would need more supports would comprise between 10 and 15% of the students in the classroom. And finally, the last 5% would be the students that need some intensive interventions. And those would be the ones that would require more time and more brainstorming on the part of our educators to be able to meet their needs. So we hope to bring lots of information back and hopefully get moving with MTSS in both our buildings. And that completes my report.
These are voting items then that we have. Consideration to approve the 2023-2024 Reading 7 course as attached. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I think Dr. Jordan has explained it to us before. Are there any questions for this evening? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Consideration to approve the 2023-2024 reading 8 course as attached. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Again, any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Federal programs report.
Last week, we found out that we were approved for the PCCG Safety and Health Grant. However, we cannot start spending it until we actually receive the award letters, which we're expecting shortly. So that was great news. And that's all I have to report.
And district report.
Thanks, Jeff. I just have a couple updates, and they actually blend into the committee updates as well. So we did approve the Nature Fest for this June 8th, 9th, 10th, and we've been working on connecting with speakers and presenters. And on June 8th, we're looking for a educational day for local educators and focusing in on the new science standards. Contacted partners from Pennsylvania Department of Education, Intermediate Unit 6, and working on the schedule at this time. Mike Beard and myself are working on gathering presenters to come in for day 2 of the event, which would be for local agricultural leaders as well as business leaders. We've reached out to Michael Mann as well as Jeremy Rifkin and EcoBeta to see if they come in and present as well. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. That kind of leads into the football field committee as well as the finance committee. The finance committee is working together. We've met and discussed this, and we're trying to figure out a way to generate money here at the district to help tackle some of these projects. So we're thinking outside of the box and going in a different manner, because as Mark had talked, with the budget reserves that we have and we continue to face a deficit each year, that's because of a compound of various factors. And first and foremost, the fair funding formula that was created and put into practice in 2016-17. And as you can tell with our fund balance, we started going backwards since then. So any new money that Governor Wolf, who has been a godsend for public education, put into public education, we've not received very much. And there's a number of different factors that go into it, but they basically take the overall budget, divide it into the number of students that we have. As we have a declining student enrollment, coupled with more and more students going out to outside cyber as well as homeschool, then we're a loser whenever it comes to the fair funding formula. And we're just having a hard time keeping up to that. In addition to that, we're smack dab in the middle of 4 different counties. So when we increase our taxes, generally goes up slightly in 2 counties and down in 2 counties. So as I've stated in the past, our cyber costs also are really causing a detrimental impact to the budget. They've gone up 130% higher than what our ability to increase taxes have been. At one time, back in that 17-18 school year, we didn't really have a cyber school bill at all. And now we're spending close to $800,000 per year on it. We've got 39 kids back out. We spent just over $20,000 for general ed students, and just under this year, $40,000 for special education students. So there's a direct correlation with that. In addition to that, I've been out looking for grants to help pay for some of these football field projects, the track project, the update needed for the auditorium, and they're just not out there. There's no grants set up for public education facilities. So, we are struggling with that, and we'll continue to work together with the school board to help combat some of those losses and see what we can do. I've reached out to local legislators, as well as I go into Harrisburg once a year and talk and share our data with them, that there needs to be change. The good news is they're going to reevaluate the fair funding formula this year, so it's in the process. We have the fair funding lawsuit from PARS that had been suing the state because we've been grossly underfunded for a good number of years. That's been 8 years in the making with that lawsuit, and we're hoping any day to hear some kind of answer one way or the other. There's going to be an appeal from either side, but hopefully in the near future we'll find some additional revenue coming into the district. But thinking outside of the box, we're focusing in on a nature festival this summer to generate some revenue, and That also leads us into the AC Valley Foundation that we've been talking about for a good number of years. I have Zach, he's submitted some paperwork to get a name. We initially went for the Falcon Foundation, but that's been taken up, so we're going for the ACV Foundation. That'll be separate from our school budget. It'll be a independent pot of money that we can use to help fund some of these projects. So not only can we start off small with the Nature Fest and hopefully generate some money to put in there, but we can do different activities. And this could be here with the district way past all of our legacy. So it is something that's going to be very positive, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get that set up. That will be a 501c3 so that people can make tax donations to this fund, and it would be a win-win for everybody. Yes.
Sorry to cut you off there, but, so you know how Ball in the Valley is a separate entity from the school? Is this foundation going to be similar to that?
Yes.
Okay, just thinking for like alcohol purposes, if that were to be verticals, something that would have that, would you be looking at?
I'm not really sure. I haven't looked into that very far yet, but with that foundation, we'll have a board of governors, which will be our finance committee, and then we'll be able to make recommendations and approve various fundraising
It would
events.
be similar to like an alumni association.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, same thing.
We've been working, trying to get that started for 10 years, I think, yeah. Talked about it because, you know, as we publicize it, hopefully businesses will contribute, and alumni will contribute. We could even, you know, as the monies grow, use it for grants for teachers and different activities,
So we're working on that, just to give you a little bit of idea as far as how we're trying to combat this budget deficit.
So for that, I think it needs to be more than just that finance committee, it needs to have the public sources on that as well, business representatives, other elected, it should be elected, to govern. If you're gonna bring anything in outside of this board, you need to have.
Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
get the board.
Usually you do, you have outside people on, you know, when you have a foundation, so.
And we'll get there, we're just not quite there yet, but I just wanted to provide everybody an update as far as what the finance committee and I've been working on. A couple other updates, Foxburg Water update, we did have our meeting on December 23rd, it was well attended, we were provided with updates from Foxburg Water Authority. They did submit and write the H2O grant to replace the holding tank, replace several pumps, as well as some infrastructure. They're also doing some work to maintain the lines right now as far as flushing it, and they went into detail as far as you know, some of the projects that they have going on currently. And it was a good discussion back and forth. In addition to that, Mark Milford and I went to St. Petersburg Water Authority, and we did a tour of their new plant, which is absolutely amazing. The building, the structure that they have set up, the plant itself, the knowledge and the work that they've gone into that program was very eye-opening. I've also contacted Clarion County commissioners, Butler County commissioners, and Venango County commissioners, met with everybody, discussed with them the dilemma that we have here with our water situation. We explored a variety of different options. The school district cannot apply for any of the Penvest or H2O water grants, but the local municipalities can. So we're working with Foxburg. Hopefully we do get the grant, but we also have our doors open that we could potentially partner with St. Petersburg in the future as well. And really the big thing is they have a 6-inch main going to the American Legion up there to tap into that. And we could be the conduit to provide water down into Foxburg. So the good thing is everybody's open to the discussion. The bad thing is there's only so much money out there. All the commissioners are aware of our dilemma. It's been on their radar for a while. I've also reached out to G.T. Thompson's office, and I'll be meeting with one of their staffers on Thursday to discuss our water dilemma that we have in here and see if there's any kind of solution. Just two more quick updates. The Career Center, we've been working closely with them up there. Clearing psychological program, maybe starting to work and rent the one building that's been sitting up there vacated. It's the LPN building that we've not had a program in. So not only can we generate more money for the Career Center, but we'll be able to provide more services for all the Clarion County youth. And we're working on surveys and providing information to them at this time. Then finally, we had a Act 80 Day today. We had a lot of professional development. Our staff was wonderful. We had inclusive practices to go along with our special education audit. We continue to work with lesson planning, formative assessments, and Ben Brost is down here from the IU to work with our math teachers specifically on instruction and assessment associated with that. We had a seizure training set up today, and we have another Act 80 Day on February 20th, and we'll be providing CPR certification to selected staff, and as well as a suicide prevention training, and then ongoing curriculum as well. And Jeff, that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Are we charging for the Nature Fest?
We'll be doing various fundraising activities, as far as like an entrance fee into the presenters. We talked about bringing in some of the clubs and we could set up various booths whenever we do an outside activity. So, yeah, we're looking at various different charges.
Thank you. Sorry.
Consideration to approve the following student school board representatives, Grace Barlett Jr. and Kate McNanny Jr. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We want to thank you folks for being willing to continue to work with us. We appreciate your input.
Consideration to approve the 2022-2023 school year Allegheny Clarion Valley School District Health and Safety Plan as attached. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Consideration to approve the PSBA Principles for Governance and Leadership as attached. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? This is kind of a yearly thing that we support. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Enrollment numbers for face-to-face student enrollment, ROC cyber service enrollment, ACV cyber service enrollment, outside cyber enrollment, IU classroom enrollment, outside placement enrollment, and homeschool enrollment dated January 11th, 2022 as attached. So moved.
23. We don't need to make a motion on that. That's just informational. They usually send us that every month, so we have an idea of our numbers.
Student board representative report.
Okay, so starting, we're just going to start a little bit on touching on athletics. Our boys and girls basketball teams have started their seasons. They both played several games, competed in a couple tournaments. Very good success. Some games that went the way that they wanted, but that's the way it works. Can't win them all, supposedly. And then going in, our cheer team, as Dr. Jordan touched on, they won District 9. They are proceeding in their training to go to states in Hershey. So everybody on that team seems excited. They're all working hard. Let's wish them luck at states. And touching on the last thing here, spring sports are starting. I'm not sure about baseball, but softball has held several open gyms. And track is starting to move forward. But other than that, there isn't much else to touch on.
During the holiday season, several classes and clubs participated in Christmas festivities within the school community. Members of our club decorated windows. So here in Arlington during the holiday season, some of the window designs were done by students here at high school. Student council participated in a school-wide, or it should just be the high school, but they participated in which we give club wrote Santa letters for first grade students, and then members of Spanish club and students taking Spanish classes at the high school sang Spanish Christmas songs to the elementary students. In addition to that, the end of the quarter 2 grading period was last Thursday. The PBIS team will be hosting a PBIS winter review tomorrow for all of the students at the high school, and they will be rewarding students without any disciplinary referrals during the second quarter with a surprise award. And I believe that it's going to be a trip to the trampoline park in February.
Thank you. School police report.
It's at your
We have one right here. So. That's it for instructional services.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to policy. Brady, can I hire you to do policy this evening?
Sure. Consideration to approve the first reading of policy 707, use of school facilities as attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that policy? Hearing any, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Consideration to approve the first reading of policy 800.1, electronic signatures records as attached. So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay, so I don't think Mark's here tonight for facilities, am I
No,
correct?
no, he was off.
Okay, so we'll move on to transportation, Diane.
Okay. Consideration to approve the request from Jennifer Calendar Transportation to add an IC model Thomas 2011 to her fleet to be used as a spare bus in case an emergency is attached. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Consideration to approve the request from Jennifer Calendar Transportation to add Jason Hook upon receipt of all appropriate documentation and an interview with the administration as a substitute driver. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Consideration to approve the request from Amanda McClellan Incorporated to add Amanda Hunt upon receipt of all appropriate documentation and an interview with the administration as a substitute driver. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to miscellaneous. Patty, could I ask you to do that for us?
Looks like most of these are reports, if I'm understanding. this
You are
correctly.
correct.
So the career center report is a copy of the unapproved regular monthly meeting minutes and unapproved December 20th organizational meeting minutes and unapproved December 20th regular meeting minutes as attached.
Right, and usually our career center reps fill us in if there's anything that,
They're probably not met, it's no speculation, is that
No,
correct?
we did
Oh,
actually,
you
we
did?
did that right
Okay.
before Christmas.
So shouldn't they be approved?
Well, the November ones were, the December ones we won't approve until January, is why she,
So can I correct that to say approved instead of unapproved November?
yeah, November was approved. I think, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, we approved the November meetings.
Okay.
It was Brady's first meeting
It was.
at the career center. I don't know what you thought of it, I didn't.
It was nice. There wasn't as much as participation as what I hoped from some other schools, but I mean, there was, I don't know, 7, 8 of us there.
Yeah, they always struggle to get a quorum, always. So I think you and one other person were new, and the other new person didn't come. So, It was, we re-elected Joe Foyce as the board president. The officers didn't change, so it was not that exciting of a meeting, I guess, but.
Next thing is the intermediate unit report.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Not much to report from the IU meeting last month. The bulk of our meeting was spent on personnel. We were able to fill quite a few vacancies that were open. And we still have a few left to fill, mainly paraprofessionals and some special ed teachers, but definitely cut down that number after December's meeting. I think we covered our health and safety plan as well. Other than that, not much anything of importance to note. We'll be reconvening for our January meeting next Wednesday, the 25th.
Thanks, Karen.
In terms of the correspondence, we have an official copy of the minutes with Marion County Tax Collection Committee dated December 7th. Technology Committee update.
we met primarily to discuss and understand the motions that you approved for the phone system and the speakers, et cetera, to increase the outside availability for announcements and to hear when things are going on. They explained it quite well to us, and everybody in the committee felt it was a good move. We're going to save some money and increase the capabilities of our equipment. So, and that's basically all we discussed. We discussed maybe somehow getting a better setup here. That's why we're closer together, so that they can hear better on the computer. Carrie, is it working better tonight to hear?
It is, it wasn't at first, but then Aaron, I think, moved the mic, and I've been good since Mark's presentation, so all good.
Okay, we've talked about maybe even having some mics at our station, so that's what we're looking into, so that when we do, because we are broadcasting, so that everybody can hear what's being said. Basically, that was it, wasn't it, David?
We
Did I miss
talked about the
anything?
need for communication on our school buses and our vans.
Oh, yes,
And that's been ongoing discussion.
we decided that we really need to try and focus on that, because our buses have, and it's the area we live in, the communication isn't easy. And Lori could explain more, but she has a very difficult time contacting buses if students are left on buses or there's not a parent there to pick somebody up.
We actually had an incident last week. A little one fell asleep on the bus. He's at a group stop, and the driver didn't notice that he didn't get off.
Yeah.
And the mom called. I was in a meeting upstairs. They got me down and said, we're missing one of our little ones. And so, of course, my heart starts racing. But fortunately, the driver happened to have turned onto like one of the back streets that she goes on out past the plaza in Edmonton. So she was able to just pull off to the side of the road because it wasn't a busy road, and answer my call.
Right.
And he was asleep in the seat, moved on him easily, so it was an easy fix. But those are the kinds of things that pop up that just make me panic. Like, what if I can't get hold
Right,
of the
we
driver?
really need to have some
Yeah.
kind of communication with our
Yeah,
buses.
and that
'Cause-
mom, she was wonderful. She stayed calm. Like, I assured her we'd find him.
And cell phone
He and
coverage
his
just,
teammate fell asleep. So
yeah, it's good. Cell phone coverage isn't great when we know what this area is like. So we're investigating. Aaron and Jeff are looking at some radios with RJ, giving us some input on some radios that they use that might work, and maybe some repeater towers or some way that we can get signal across the area. So that's going to be a priority, we hope.
if I can throw 2 cents in there, we had a challenge. We did challenge as in a contest type of challenge. We did a couple years ago before the pandemic. We'll go with that. And there was a group out of Sullivan County. Sullivan is maybe a little worse than we are, believe it or not. And the group that won that actually had a farm emergency device that they created that allowed for that interaction it's just like 3 buttons. And what it does is like, I'm okay, I'm running late. I'm okay, I need help. As in like, animal drug, come help me. And help call 911.
Mhm.
So if we had something similar to that where.
Well, we'd actually want, I think, voice communication because.
But that would allow you to get someone to a point where you could get, if you are in an area that doesn't. Because it's something with the shortwave radio signals. I don't remember, it's been too long, I don't know what that technology was. But that's something that would at least let you know they're okay until they get a signal.
Yeah, we
And
can
it goes both-
investigate
And
that.
it goes both ways. It goes from a base out. So,
I think that's kind of on the lines of what RJ was looking at, the radios and stuff that he used.
Oh.
Shortwave.
Yeah, I mean, we have some shortwave radios we use with the company we had.
Yeah,
And they had like a couple mile range, but you'd have to look at different models, but
right.
something like that though, I mean, at least they can know that, you need to call the school, so they can,
Right.
drive back to the cell phone coverage area.
or you're not being distracted, something's gonna light up, or
Right.
whatever the methodology is there. But
Pardon my ignorance, but wouldn't the CB radio work anywhere?
we talked
You
about that,
think?
they have ranges.
Yeah, we talked about, the rain. There's
Maybe
just,
you could
the
get 'em.
terrain is,
Because I mean, we had like, I was just thinking, when we get on the Lake Erie, we have the CB radio that like transmits miles out there.
but it's flat.
And apparently there's some boosters along the highway to help that radio. And I didn't know that either. We did bring down Clarion County folks to potentially utilize the cell phone tower as a repeater to try to get the cell out there. And and it's just, it can't reach every area of it, but I thought the same thing.
So we're investigating that. That was basically what we did in that meeting.
Athletic committee update,
We didn't have one.
football field renovation committee update,
I just provided you with a little bit of update during my report.
finance committee update,
Same thing.
same thing, okay, that's it.
Thanks, Patty. All right, is there any old business that we need to discuss?
I wanted to just touch base on the basketball co-op and just see like if we're discussing that since the season's kind of ending, it'd probably be good to have that in place for next year. So I didn't know if there was any more talk with unions, since it kind of stopped there, or if we should kind of stir that pot again and see if we can get something maybe for next month or at least March.
That's our first discussion point as soon as the season is finished.
Okay, any new business?
The senior trip,
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, we need a motion to approve the senior trip that was presented to us earlier.
I'll make a motion to approve the senior trip to Pigeon Forge this year.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Any other new business? Okay, not seeing any. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Great, thank you, folks.
thank you all, have a great evening.
And thanks to everyone who gave us something for School Director Appreciation. We want to thank all those people. We really appreciate it. Yeah, there's posters on the stage as well as what was at your seat.